Let me go back here. Okay, so this is how to remember history, particularly with semester 2, and we're going to take a look at just some ways that we can remember history more effectively, and we're going to look at a lesson 1.3 on the Berlin crisis, and hopefully we're going to just find some neat and interesting ways that we can better ourselves. Here are some expectations for the students that aren't here. We're gonna have our mute. We're gonna mute our mic. Our mic's got to be muted. So if we have pets or little kids running around or little brothers and sisters trying to bug you, we don't have that happening and distracting other people. We'll also have our cameras off, so we don't have any other distractions on our screens. Also, participate in group discussion. That's a big thing. We're gonna have a couple discussions here, and I would like to see some good group discussions. And last but not least, respect each other and just respect me. Before I get going, I just want to introduce myself a little bit. I'm Mr. Bishop, Ben Bishop from Michigan. I'm one of your history teachers from the great state of Michigan. It's a great state to live in. I love Michigan by far. I'm prejudiced about it, but by far my favorite state to live in. A lot of great seasons here, and it's not too hot in the summer. Just a great place to live. Okay, at each session, I'm always going to have some I can statements posted. One's going to be just I can, after the session's over, describe several ways that might help me remember history more effectively. Okay, that's just pretty generic, and hopefully we can reach that I can statement. The second one is going to be more focused on the lesson itself. 1.3 on Berlin. Describe how American politicians reacted to Soviet expansion in Berlin. Okay, agenda. We got kind of a lengthy agenda here, but hopefully we stick with our time period and maybe even get out a little early. First, we'll have an introduction, which we're doing now. We're going to hit the expectations and the agenda. Should have taken about 5 minutes, and we're hitting that right now. Then at the beginning of each session, I like to have a warm-up question, just something to get our brains flowing and get our juices moving. And then we're gonna have a 10-minute session on remembering history. I'm gonna give you some pointers. Maybe look at the lesson 1.3 itself a little bit more in depth. And then we're gonna have a 10-minute session here where it's gonna be open for questions and discussion. I might post a question, and I might just ask you if you have any questions about individual assignments, individual goals, and we can privately chat during that 10-minute session. Also, what I say in these 10-minute discussion questions, if you have to use the restroom, go walk around, let your dog in, feel free to do so. Then we're going to have, after the 10-minute discussion, question time, we're going to have another 10-minute session of diving deeper into remembering history in lesson 1.3. We're going to have another 10-minute discussion question time. And then hopefully at the end, it shouldn't take 10 minutes, but we'll have a last remarks. And then I have a ticket out the door assignment, which is just a question. And once you privately comment to me, you may leave. So we'll shoot for 60 minutes, and we'll go from there. If I don't have any other students come aboard, well, then it's going to be a little bit shorter. Okay, so here's your warm-up question. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to think about it. What techniques do you practice that help you in your history classes? What techniques do you practice or that you do that help you remember history? I'm going to give you a couple minutes to work on that. We'll give you about a 30-second warning here. Go ahead and wrap up your last thoughts, and we're going to move on. So hopefully, I was hoping that more students would be in here, but just think about what techniques you practiced that would have usually help you in history class. Was it taking notes? Was it memorizing dates? What helped you get that sought after A or even a B in these hard history classes? Okay, here's some before we dive in. Here's just some of the common mistakes that I personally find history students make, and they're big ones. And a lot of times they prevent students from reaching their goals. Number one is they attempt to memorize every date in each reading. You know very well in history classes, there's a lot of reading that's involved, a lot of reading, sometimes too much reading. And I would agree with that 100%. When I was in college, we had assignment after assignment of reading and reading and reading and reading. And all these questions that I'm going to ask you are questions that I had when I was in college and I had to work through. And I attempted to memorize every date in each reading, and it got too much. Also, those long readings that we have, okay, I read word for word, and it took me hours to get done. Hours. And by the time I was done reading, I was too tired to even do the homework. Okay, so this is one big mistake that I find, and I know personally that history students make. Lastly, I tried to memorize the facts. I had to memorize everything. I wanted to memorize uh, when we entered World War II. I wanted to memorize when China uh, declared war on another country. I want to know it all. Okay, but because I wanted to memorize the facts, I did not understand the concepts. Okay, so a big mistake is memorize the facts instead of understanding the concept. Hi, Rachel. Rachel, can you hear me?
Hey,
Right now, it's
Ben.
just you and me.
Bummer. We're
That's all
hanging out
right.
here.
Well, hopefully, students will find this helpful, and so.
Yeah. Okay. Did I interrupt your recording?
Uh, no, we'll just get right back on track. So I just want to say hi.
Okay. Hi. I'll be quiet again then. Bye.
So one of the big mistakes that I found was I tried to memorize the facts instead of understand the major concepts. So one question I want to ask you is, do you make any of these mistakes? Or is there a mistake that is not listed on here that you make? I will give you about 30 seconds to a minute um, to answer that question while I attend to my barking dog. I'll give you about 30 seconds. Okay, so here are 5 techniques that I found personally that helped me, and I hope that they help you as well. These techniques helped me through college, and it wasn't too many years ago that I was in college studying history, crammed in a little classroom with a lot of people reading out of a textbook. Boring. Okay, so here's 5 techniques that might help you. Number 1, take notes. Okay. Out of the 5 techniques, taking notes is the one that I'm gonna least hit on because there's gonna be other sessions on note taking, so I don't want to take away from those sessions. But the first one is just take notes. Whatever helps you best, however you want to take notes, knock those out because those can be really helpful. Okay. Also, make a timeline or an outline. Okay, a lot of times, when we're doing these readings for these classes, or each page has all this just word after word after word, date after date. Make a timeline. Okay, on this date, this happened. On this date, that happened. That to me, that gives me a visual and something to work with. Also, an outline. Same thing with the timeline. Outlines work really, really well if we're just having a visual. Also, summarize the main points. Don't try to memorize every little detail. History is not about memorizing every little detail. A lot of times the main points are what's going to be on the test or the quiz. Concepts, not dates. Okay, dates are important. Don't get me wrong with that. Dates are important, but they're not the end all be all of history. Yes, you need to know dates. I'm not going to sit here and tell you you don't need to know dates for history class, but the dates are not as important as the major main points and the concepts. Last but not least, don't read the long text word for word. Like I said a couple minutes ago, I made that mistake. I really did. I tried to read an entire textbook word for word, and by the time I was done reading, I was too tired, and it was at midnight, and I didn't want to do the work. So I read all that work, and I didn't get my homework done because I was just too tired. So don't read the long text word for word. Summarize. So here we're going to dive a little bit deeper into making an outline. Actually, we're going to come back to this one. I'd like to do this one last because this one's going to be a little bit hands-on. So we're going to actually come back to this one. We'll get the next one. Okay, so here's a question that I get a lot from students. There is so much reading. How do I know what information I need to know for the quiz? Good question. Okay, this is what I would say. Summarize the main points. Oh, think of that. Going back to the 5 helpful hints. Summarize the main points. Well, how do I do that? Okay, so let's take a look. So this is word for word from the lesson 1.3 in semester 2. I'm going to give you a second. I'm going to give you about a minute or so to read the reading here. And what do you think is the main point? I'll give you a minute. I'll give you about 30 seconds. So what do you think the main point is? let me read this together here. Though Stalin lifted the blockade, East and West Berlin remained divided. With aid from the United States, West Germany rebuilt its economy. The Soviet zone became the German Democratic Republic, or East Germany. Over the next 12 years, 3 million East Germans were discontent with life under communism and fled to West Berlin and West Germany. The flight of so many people embarrassed East Germany and the Soviet Union. In response, in August of 1961, East German soldiers began building a wall with concrete and barbed wire across Berlin. In only a few days, the wall sealed off East Berlin from West Berlin. East Berlin civilians who tried to escape were shot by border guards. The Berlin Wall became a symbol of the Cold War that divided Europe. Okay, so there's a lot of reading here. Okay, and if I could just sum up this reading in just a sentence or two, that would help me out tremendously and help you out tremendously. After how I would sum this up would be after World War II, okay, um, relationships between the United States and the Soviet Union were not good, and we know that from previous lessons. They were not good, okay, and if you look at it, Germans were discontent with life under communism and began fleeing to West Germany. The flight of so many people embarrassed East Germany. So here we have a relationship between East and West, the United States and Russia and the Soviet Union. It was not good. And here is another mark on how the relationship was not good, in short terms. And this only made the USSR, the Soviet Union, more angry when people began fleeing to the United States controlled territory. That's summing it up. That's it. I didn't have to worry about the dates. I didn't have to worry about the names or how many millions of Germans there. I just, right there, I just summed up that the United States and the Soviet Union did not get along. And the Berlin Wall was built because the Soviet Union was embarrassed and mad that East Germans were fleeing to West Germany. Okay, here's the next tip. Remember the dates? Yeah, 1941, 1942, or was it 1943? I don't know. Good question. Okay. Dates can be important, but are not the main idea of the lesson. So, like, they're a good idea. That's just a no-brainer. You have to know your dates. But when you only rely on your knowledge of dates, you're not going to get the main idea or the main points. So I would say understand time periods instead of exact dates. So, in semester 1, we talked about how the 1920s was a great time to live because the stock market was high, uh, everyone was having a great standard of living, healthcare was going up. The 1920s was a great time to live. I'm not saying 1921 was a good time to live because of this, this, and this. I'm just summarizing the main time period. So keeping that in mind, let's take a look at another section I have from lesson 1.3. Wow, we got some dates here. Okay, luckily for you, it's only the same dates, but we keep that in mind. I tried to find a lesson that had a lot of dates, and I couldn't really find one that matched up, but we'll go with this. So as I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to read this section. Why don't you go ahead and read that section for me? Okay, looking at this reading, okay, there's a lot of dates, two dates in particular, 1949. 1949 is an important date, okay? It's a very important date because in 1949 there was a lot that happened. Okay, it was really called the 1949 scare. This, in particular, this example um, would be a reason why you probably should know a date because there's a lot going on here. Like, for instance, the Soviet Union detonated its first atomic weapon. Huge. Before then, the United States was the only country that detonated, that knew how to use atomic weapons until 1949. Next, China, the next biggest country in the world, fell to communism. And we know in lesson 1.2 how the United States felt about communism. Okay, they didn't really like it too much, right? Because communism is not good, according to most of uh, Americans back in the 1940s. Okay, so 1949. Okay, I didn't have to go through and say, okay, on September 3rd this happened, or in November this happened. All I'm just saying is 1949. All I'm summarizing, 1949 was a big date. Okay, it was a big date because the United States got scared due to the Soviets detonating their first atomic weapon, and China, a huge country, fell to communism. So I'm going to, before I get to the next one, I'm going to just open up for questions, comments for a couple minutes. Just let me know if I can help you with any assignments or any questions particular to the session. If I'm going too fast, feel free to private message me and I can give you some pointers. Okay, seeing that we don't have any participants, I'm just going to go ahead and uh, get moving on to our next point. Another quote that, and these are quotes I take directly from other students that I found in my chat message, and they freak out, about history classes, and there's just so much information. What do I do, Mr. Bishop? Okay, so I'm hoping that this session helps you and just lowers the uh, fright of history classes. So the reading has a lot of important information. It just seems like everything is important. Do I need to memorize it all? You know what I'd say? It's not always about the facts. Not always about the facts. You don't need to memorize every single line, every single happening. Okay, it's like I said in the first couple slides, it's not always about the facts. And that's one thing, I had to work through when I was in college. I thought that in order to get an A on my history paper, was for me to read the textbook word for word, memorize everything that happened, and it's just exhausting. And that's just not what history is about. So let's take a look at Berlin. It's not always about the facts. Just remember that. Whoa, see, look at it. There's a lot of reading here. Okay, you're thinking, okay, well, actually, this is from 2 pages, so it does seem like there's a lot of reading. Um, but it's really intimidating when you first look at this page and looking at this huge paragraph of information. And you're thinking, how do I possibly understand and remember all this? Okay, like I said, it's about the main idea. Okay, so let's take 30 seconds. I want you to read over um, this little paragraph, and in a private message, remember 30 seconds to a minute, in a private message, just guess. It's okay to be wrong. We're going to go over it together. What do you think the main idea, the main point of this paragraph is? Why don't you go ahead and do that?
And real quick, Charles, for you to be able to answer the question, you can unmute yourself or type in the chat box. You just
That's
have to click
perfect.
on the chat button.
Thanks, Rachel.
Of course.
So when I read this little paragraph, like I said, there's a lot of writing here. There's a lot of stuff to read. Um, Good, Charles. I like that. That's awesome. Yeah, it's about NATO. NATO is we're gonna get to that. NATO's huge. Okay, so is the Warsaw Pact. Um, but when you're reading this, it's just so much information. You're like, I gotta know all this. That's not what we want. Okay, that's not. You don't need to memorize this whole paragraph. Um, so when I read this, there's two main things that point out. Okay, we already know, okay, that the Soviet Union and the United States are the two biggest world superpowers at the time, and they don't like each other. Okay, they don't like each other at all. So all this fighting, uh, not actual fighting, but these it's just like you know this rivalry between siblings is happening, and then in order to better themselves, the U.S. said, hey, let's join NATO. Okay, let's get some friends to join us. So just in case the Soviet Union decides to be a little turd, we can uh, gang up on them. Okay, so the Soviets hearing this, okay, remember they don't like the United States or their friends. They said, well, you know what? Fine then. If you're gonna act that way, then we're gonna get into the Warsaw Pact. We're gonna have our own friends, and basically saying if you ever attack any of our friends, we're gonna attack you. That's just how it's gonna be. Okay. So I didn't even have to read that whole paragraph, and I could just say that the U.S. joined NATO and the Soviet Union joined the Warsaw Pact, and they were just two groups defending against one another. Not, I didn't strain myself trying to memorize um, what date, what groups, just the two main pacts. We had the Warsaw Pact and NATO. Oh, definitely not the last question, so I need to move back. So when I first started, I said that I was going to um, do a little bit of, let's see, yes, the outline. Okay, um, an outline. Okay, this really helped me out big time when I was in college, and I'm always gonna go back to my college days because um, it shocked me when I was in my history classes because they were tough classes, and they asked me to know a lot of stuff. And an outline, okay, is one of the ways that I got an A or even passed my really hard senior level history classes. So let's take a look. How to make an outline. Now we're going to actually go over that. I'm going to open up a Word document here in a minute, and we're going to practice it together. So how to make an outline. First off, think of that. Okay, we're all going back to, that word, main, the main points, the main dates, the main people. Okay, and I'm telling you, in every single reading, there's a lot of dates. Okay, but not every single date is deathly important, urgent. Okay, so try to remember the main dates, like 1949. When we talk about 1949, the scares, the Soviet Union detonated its first bomb, and China fell to communism. Okay, that's a big date. That's a main date. Skipping up to the main points. Okay, the main points, like I talked about, let's just go back to the Warsaw Pact. Okay, we didn't make you memorize what groups are with the Warsaw Pact and what group was with NATO. Okay, the main points were these two pacts were there to protect one another from the opposite pact. Main point. Okay, and the main people. Okay, the main people, such as a president of the time, or you know the head dictator in the Soviet Union. Okay, main people. Pretty easy. So let's take a look at lesson 1.3. Whoa. Okay. Um, so I'm actually going to read this one aloud, make it a little easier. Be ready with your chat box for a question at the end. After World War II, Germany was split up into 4 zones. American, British, French, and Soviet troops occupied each zone. Berlin was also divided into 4 zones. So the city of Berlin was divided into 4 zones, even though it lay deep into the Soviet zone. By 1948, there's a date right there. Don't let it mess with your mind. By 1948, tensions grew as America, Britain, and France were ready to allow Germans to reunite into one single nation. Guess what? Oh, hey, there's a person, Stalin. Okay, that might be a main person you need to know. Stalin opposed this plan because he believed that a reunited Germany could once again become too strong and threaten the Soviet Union. In June, this should be a capital J, 1948, the United States, Britain, and France announced that they would join their zones into the German Federal Republic, or West Germany. In response, Stalin closed all roads, railways, and river routes connecting Berlin and West Germany. The blockade cut off American, French, and British West Berlin from the rest of the world. Okay, I wish I actually would have written this down, but I have a question for you. What do you think in the chat box is the A, main point, B, let's go, the main people that's being talked about. So main point, and let's say the main groups, the groups that we need to know for this paragraph. So either do a private chat or we can have a group discussion. We'll give about 30 more seconds to get a reply on here. Well, looks like we lost. Oh, we lost someone and we gained someone. Awesome. Hi, Maddie. How are you? If you can hear my recording, go ahead and just put hi right into our group chat. Okay, so if you look on my screen, I split it up for you, so hopefully you can see both the paragraph that we're talking about and my Word document here. I'm going to attempt to, I'm picky here, I like to go Times New Roman. That's the social studies teacher in me. I'm going to attempt to create an outline, just a short outline just for this paragraph. It doesn't have to be long. And you're going to notice that this outline's not going to be long. It's not going to be lengthy. So I'm going to split it up into a couple sections. First off, I'm going to type in the group. What groups are we talking about here? Okay. Well, we can say easy. Okay, Germans, right? Germans, East and West. We'll go East, East and West, Germans. Okay. These people, East and West, remember, are getting torn apart between the Soviet zone and the Allied zone. So that's a big group. Okay. We also have, okay, America, Britain, and France. Okay, that's another group. Fold that. Okay. Germans, East and West, Americans, Great Britain, France. Okay, and there's one last group. We're going to call that, of course, the Soviet Union. Okay, that's not too hard to remember. Okay, and what we can do is we can color coordinate too. Let's get a darker one. Okay, red, remember they're all together. We'll go blue, Soviet Union. Okay, so now you know the Soviet Union and its allies were opposing the United States and its allies. Okay, so groups, perfect. Let's go, next one, let's do date here. We'll change that to black. Date, so we're looking at the paragraph here. What date? Okay, you may, actually we don't have any participants. I was gonna ask in the chat, please put the date that we're talking about, but I'll do it anyway. 1948 is the date. Okay, one date. Look at that, that's not hard to remember. 1948. Last but not least, we asked group, date, main idea. Okay, let's go main idea. Oh. Main idea. Okay, it's the same that I've been talking about in the previous slides. It's basically East versus West all over again. Okay, East being the Soviet Union, West being the United States and its allies. Remember, the United States did not like the USSR or the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union did not like the United States. Okay, so here we have in this paragraph, East versus West. How so? Well, Stalin, the Soviet Union, okay, believed that a united Germany would once again grow too powerful and attack everyone and try to dominate the world just like in World War II. While the West, such as the United States, France, Britain, they believed that, hey, we should, we've been helping them out a lot. We should let them become more independent. Okay. So how could we write that? I'd say, let's go West wanted independent Germany, while the Soviet Union wanted complete control. Right there is the main idea of the entire paragraph. Okay, because the Soviet Union wanted complete control, they, if you look at here on the slide, they made a blockade of all Berlin, the city of Berlin. That paragraph right there just was changed into this beautiful, short and sweet outline. I like this outline a lot more than reading this intimidating paragraph any day. So I'm gonna, if I did have students, I would like to open this time up for last questions about the class itself, any assignments, but I don't have any students. So I think I'm going to go to our last slide here. Like I said, at the end of each session, I like to end, let me keep going, with a ticket out the door assignment. These are simple. As you listen to this recording, and I ask you the question, feel free to write it down on a piece of paper or a notepad, just something that's going to help you in the near future. Okay, so here's your ticket out the door assignment here. Find the 2 main points in this reading. There you go. That's that simple. And this is by far the hardest part of the reading. There's a lot of dates, a lot of people, okay? But with the information that I gave you here, okay, chunking it up, looking for the main points, not trying to memorize the dates, I think finding the 2 main points in this reading should be very easy for you. So once you go ahead and write your ticket out the door, your answer, you go ahead and get out of here, okay, and enjoy the rest of your day. So thank you so much for listening to me, and hopefully the information I gave you this evening really helps you out, and because I know it helped me out when I was in college. And like I said, it was short and sweet and to the point, but I hope it helps you.